Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to Terror Talk, where I discuss creepy clips online. Just to set up clear expectations, this is a commentary channel on scary stories and weird stuff. So, if commentaries are a thing, you're in the right place. The original horror music at the end of my videos was composed by me. Now, let's get into it and have some fun.
I don't remember exactly what year it was that this happened, but I've never really been able to shake the horror I felt that night. It's one of those things you assume would never happen to you, or that only happens in the movies. But being that naive only makes it 100 times more terrifying if you are unfortunate enough to experience something similar. I was young at the time, being in middle school, kind of at that age where I was starting to feel like I was growing up a bit. You know, feeling more like a man, I guess. Which is silly to think about looking back. Anyway, it was summer, so most of my days were spent hanging out with my friends.
Yeah, how were your days in middle school? For me, it was really hard. Middle school was a very challenging time. I was bullied a lot, kids were assholes. I think a lot of people go through a really hard time, especially in middle school, and I think everything can feel a lot more scary when you're at that age. So when something actually really scary happens, it can feel terrifying, like this story. But yeah, let me know, how was your time in middle school? Did you have a good time, or were you bullied? And did anything ever really scary happen to you when you were that age? For me, not really. I just had a really difficult time with the other kids at my school growing up. High school did get a lot better, but yeah, let me know in the comments below.
Either outside or gaming inside. This weekend was special though. My parents were taking a short road trip to a city 8 hours away to relive their honeymoon, or something like that. I didn't care too much about the details, because all I could think about was how excited I was to have the house to myself and invite my friends to sleep over with no rules to follow or anything. They left early Saturday morning, so when I woke up, they were already gone. I immediately texted my best friend, Finn. The only issue was that his parents definitely wouldn't let him over if they knew that there were no adults in the house. But with a little bit of lying, Finn was allowed to come over. Now, he wasn't going to be at my place until later in the day, like 6-ish, but being excited, I opened up the front windows so I could see when he got here later. However, when I did, I quickly noticed a man outside. The only reason I even cared was because he was strangely close to the house, like past the sidewalk and kind of near the garage. He had a very distinct look to him. Longish dark hair, patchy beard, and fairly tall and skinny. It made me feel uneasy, so I moved away from the window, not wanting to get spotted looking at him. A few minutes later, I quickly checked again, and he was gone. I didn't think it was anything worth mentioning. The rest of that day was chill. I was mostly in my room, just playing on my Xbox, until 6 when Finn finally made it. We grabbed some snacks from the kitchen, then went upstairs and pretty much locked ourselves in my room and played video games for 5 hours straight.
Wow, 5 hours straight, that's a long time, but I know gamers, they do that. I don't know, I find it a complete waste of time, in my opinion. That doesn't mean it's not fun, but isn't it creepy that the guy was just standing right outside the house? Like, what do you think he wanted? I feel like that's right how a movie starts. Is that you look outside, and someone is just kind of standing there close by your property, and then, a few minutes later, they're not there. That's exactly how a horror movie starts, isn't it? Because then creepy things just keep happening and keep happening after that. Like, you start to hear noises, or, you start to see them lurking in other places, or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Just people can be really, really weird and creepy, can't they?
It was about 11:30, and of course we were still playing Xbox when Finn left the room to go to the bathroom. Only 30 seconds later, though, he came back and asked if I heard that. I asked what, not having heard anything. But before Finn could answer, the whole house suddenly went dark. The TV, Xbox, lights, everything just shut off. I couldn't even see Finn standing in the doorway 5 feet from me. I combed the floor with my hands, trying to feel around for my phone, picking it up and turning on the flashlight. Both me and Finn were quiet for a second. I think just confused why the power had shut off so suddenly. But also, I was listening for what sound Finn said he heard just a few moments before the blackouts. Eventually, after hearing nothing, and the power not coming back on, I asked again what he heard, but Finn said he wasn't really sure, maybe like a thump or a footstep on the floor below us. With the power shutting off, though, we assumed it was probably just something to do with that, but we still didn't know why it shut off. And being younger and alone in the house, it was still a little unsettling. Knowing we kinda had to figure out what was going on, we went out into the hallway and down to the first floor. Once we left the room, we noticed we could hear the wind outside. It wasn't anything out of the usual, but enough to maybe consider that it could have caused a problem. Maybe it was us just grasping for something to blame, though. Neither of us really knew what to do in this situation. Like, I knew there was an electrical box in the basement that could somehow test or turn the power back on, but I didn't know any specifics, and I was kinda nervous to try anything. Finn thought he might be able to figure it out, though, so I showed him to the basement. Oddly, the door was already open. Rarely does anyone go down there because it was unfinished and nothing was there but some storage and random old unused stuff. However, with my parents going on a trip, I thought maybe they might have gone down to grab some suitcases or something. The basement door was kind of toward the back of the house, so I hadn't been over there that whole day. This just made the whole thing a bit more unsettling than it already was. We still had our phone flashlights on, so Finn led the way as we walked down the creaky wooden stairs and into the basement.
Yeah, I think, especially being at that age, the basement door being open when literally no one goes in there, and a blackout, and seeing someone outside your house earlier that day, that would all be like a really creepy combination of things for everything to happen all at once, right? Like, it's no wonder they're freaked out, because if I was at that age, I would be literally shitting myself. Like, I'm not even kidding you. So, what would you do in this situation? Like, whether you're young or an adult, it doesn't matter. What would you do? Would you go down and check it out? Because I don't know that I would go down and check it out. Like, I literally do not like basements. I think they're super creepy. And I would just stay out. And I don't know. Like, there's not really enough to call the police in this situation. But yeah, let me know what you would do.
It wasn't very big, kind of like a wide corridor with concrete walls and a few boxes and loose items stacked up along the wall. Obviously, it was extremely dark. Anything that wasn't directly in front of our flashlights was completely pitch black. We went over to the electrical box. The panel that covered it was already partially opened. Finn looked around at it, but I think now that he was down here, he was also just as nervous as I was about trying anything. The main, larger switch was the only one that was flipped to the opposite side from all the rest, though. Of course, we didn't know what this meant, but after a bit of hesitation, he flipped it over. Immediately, there were a bunch of faint beeping sounds and random startup noises from all the appliances on the floor above us. The basement was still completely dark, though, as we never even tried turning the lights on before going down there. There was only a single sliver of light shining down the staircase from the first floor. We started walking back down the corridor to get to the stairs, but just before we got there, a sudden shuffling sound came from the other side of the basement. Both of us stopped moving, and I shined my light in that direction. In the dark, someone was standing there. I could see their shape outlined in the light, and I immediately recognized their tall, skinny appearance and long, dark hair. He was standing sort of behind some boxes, which casted a shadow over his face, so I couldn't tell if we were making eye contact or not, or if he was sure that we saw him. I turned and booked it up the stairs. Finn followed close behind. I slammed the door behind us, and we just ran right out the front door. Both of us were understandably freaking out. We ran across the street, and I started a call with 911. It was pretty clear as we stood there, and all the other houses' lights were on, that the man in the basement had shut off the power. While on the phone, getting updates from the operator, we saw a figure move past one of the downstairs windows. Then, 15 seconds later, they moved past an upstairs window. I think it was the one in my parents' room that they were walking around in. But for the next couple minutes, we saw nothing else before police arrived. They went in, and nobody was there. He'd already left out one of the back windows. Of course, my parents were called, and there were a ton of questions, but ultimately, nothing came of it. There's so many horrifying things to think about when it comes to what happened that night, or could have happened, like how long that man had been watching the house for, or watching my family for. What exactly was he trying to do by breaking in and shutting off the power, then staying hidden in the basement? Thankfully, my parents were smart enough to move us out of that house soon after. Hopefully, we never have any more encounters with that man again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them at all for moving out of the house soon after that. Because that would be a really terrifying thing to happen. I mean, just imagine, no matter what age, just imagine having some creepy guy that is tall and thin and just kind of really creepy looking with a really scraggly beard that's just hiding in your basement. You know, it almost kind of reminds you of Scrawny Beard Man, right? Like, do you know that story? I was terrified of that story when I was young. If you don't know, Scrawny Beard Man is it's like a kind of a legend, I guess. I don't really know. I obviously don't think it's true, but kind of just about a really creepy homeless guy that lives in the mountains, and he's really skinny and has like a really scrawny beard, and he just kind of dwells in the mountains and comes down into town and frightens the hell out of people. So yeah, that's like what Scrawny Beard Man is, if you ever haven't heard of it. But it would just be so terrifying seeing someone like that in your basement. Like, damn, that would be horrifying at any age. But yeah, I think that this was definitely a creepy story. Let me know, what do you think the guy wanted? Was he there to hurt them or rob them? Like, why hide in the basement and why turn off the power? But I definitely thought this was a creepy story, and I hope you enjoyed the music and the commentary, and I will see you in the next video.